When Resident Evil 5 came out back in 2009, I was all about it. I had just played my first Resident Evil ever 2 years before in Resident Evil 4 for the Wii. I didn't grow up playing the series. I started from 4 on and the remakes. I actually just played the first one and 0 last year. And at the time, I only had Resident Evil 4 to compare it with, and I actually thought Resident Evil 5 was better, strictly because of how much fun I had with the co-op and everything that offers. And maybe going from the Wii to the 360 made a huge difference as well. I have a ton of Resident Evil experience since then, and I have not played it since I platinumed it back then, and I'm excited to dive back in. Is it really better than Resident Evil 4? Does it still hold up? Or is it time for a remake? Let's find out as we take another look at
Resident Evil 5.
5 years after the events of Resident Evil 4, now BSAA agent Chris Redfield is sent to Kijuju. There he's met up with a series newcomer, Sheva Alomar. They are tasked with investigating a bioterrorist threat. Upon arrival, they realize that the locals have been infected by Las Plagas. Chris and Sheva are rescued by Captain Josh Stone, Sheva's mentor, and here Chris sees a photo of his presumed ex-dead partner, Jill, who we found out during flashbacks in the game had a run-in with Albert Wesker. So now Chris is determined to find Jill and stop the spread of the Ouroboros virus. When the rumors of a Resident Evil 5 remake were floating around, I said, hell no, it's fine, leave it alone. Playing it now, I must say, no, it's not fine. The controls are tanky as hell, stiff as a board, and feel dated even for the time. Not being able to move and shoot at the same time was a big deal even back then. Now, even though the controls are dated, none of this makes the game unplayable by enemies, don't get me wrong. It just takes a second to get used to. I mean, even by the end, I wanted to knife something and I kept pulling my gun out. Nothing a simple control map can't fix. The game can be played solo or in split screen. Solo, the friendly AI isn't the worst ever in my opinion, but it's definitely not the preferred way to play. Everything about the game feels like it was designed towards the couch co-op experience. Everything except for maybe the screen itself. I forgot that they split it up like this. I don't know if they were trying to be artsy fartsy or maybe they thought it looked cool, but there's just so much wasted space. They even have the audacity to put the map, weapons, and ammo in there, making it even more cluttered than it already is. Why didn't they put that stuff over here on the outside? Yeah, you can toggle the map, but you already took half the screen, so now I have less of it now. But like the controls, this is something you get used to really quick. I did kind of like the direction of having a little cutscene going on one screen while the other guy is still running around. But even with only 25% of my screen available to me, I still think co-op is the best way to play. I guess online co-op might be the optimal way to play. I mean, if you can handle the annoyance.
Come on!
Roger.
Come on!
Okay.
Come on!
Come on! Come on!
Hurry! Sheva!
Roger.
Hurry!
Come on!
But what I really found impressive even back then was how independent each player can be within the level. You're locked in a certain area until you reach the door you both need to open to proceed. But until then, there's nothing tethering you to each other. You don't have to be on the same screen. You don't have to be on the same side. You can both each explore the area freely, which definitely comes into play in some of the level designs, having each player on opposite sides of the map, doing and retrieving things totally independently. Item management is a big deal for the series, and they made it one here yet again, only giving each player 9 spots, so you only have 18 slots to play with in total, so you have to combine weed,
He ain't getting busted for using weed.
trading ammo with each other. All that is completely vital. Strictly because of how many stuff there is you have to cut open for resources, crates, boxes, vases. These slots fill up really quickly. Oddly enough, the thing I thought would be the biggest problem going in wasn't, and that was the laser sight aiming for the guns. It works surprisingly well across the board. I thought I was going to need time to get used to that, but no, I took to it very quickly. And the guns feel pretty responsive and satisfying to shoot. The sniper might be the most satisfying to shoot. Shooting a guy's head clean off feels really good. That sentence is kind of messed up. Grenades have a very good oomph to them and the damage can be seen. And any weapon you find can be purchased for your partner at a menu screen between chapters. You'll sell the treasure for points to spend. You can buy ammo, you can upgrade the weapons. And when you do, I like that you can actually feel the upgrade within the weapon. It shoots and feels different, which is very good. Only the first player can buy and sell stuff, which I understand. I guess it makes sense because it's Chris's mission, but it's just a bit inconvenient. I wish it was like it is online with each player having their own monies. But there are a ton of collectibles and treasures scattered throughout the whole game, adding a ton of replayability. Even upgrading all the weapons gives you a ton of different ways to run through the game, including checking out the different outfits, unlocking infinite ammo for guns, and more. Plus, this is one of the few games where I actually feel like getting the trophies and achievements are actually fun. They originally had plans of having a merchant in the game, and there's rumors that it was supposed to be this guy in the beginning, but he was cut out for the aforementioned menu instead, giving the game a more arcadey feel rather than interacting with the world like the other merchants, which makes it feel like it's a real living place. That decision just being one of many decisions that makes the game feel more detached from the series. They leaned in heavily more into the action side rather than the horror, which is what the series is really known for, and I think this is what really put off most ressy diehards back then. The game after Chapter 5 is proof of this. The Majini, aka the zombies, are equipped with guns now and know how to use them, and the game just basically becomes a cover shooter with not a very good cover shooter mechanic. You can't move while behind cover, making it feel even more stiff than it already is. I mean, the first Gears of War released 3 years prior and changed the industry for cover shooters forever, but Capcom didn't feel the need to adapt. Looking back, I wish they would have at least been inspired or just straight up copy the cover system and the split screen for that matter. But of course, hindsight is 2020. Yeah, it may not be scary, but that does not mean that there's no tense moments. There are a ton. Swimming with gators, fighting giant bats, keeping giant nasty roaches at bay. Just bigger and badder enemies are introduced that can definitely get your heart rate up, especially in the higher difficulties. When swarmed by a lot of them and you're equipped with the proper firepower, this provides some of the most fun in the game. Just dispatching a group of them with your buddy is just super entertaining. And you wouldn't think so, but there's also freedom in your playstyles. One can be a complete crazy guy blasting him in the face with a shotgun while the other sits back and picks him apart with a sniper. The combo melee attacks are ridiculously fun as well. Killing a giant dude with a machine gun strapped to his back with your bare hands, come on, how is that not fun? The audio design on the enemies is still great. The performance are good as well. Boss fights are pretty fun, epic. Some bosses kind of repeat themselves a bit towards the end, but what you do in the fight is completely different. Quick time events do make an appearance, which in co-op, if your partner has the reflexes of a sloth, could be a pain, but as quick time events go, they're pretty fun. There's even some on-rail sections that are actually pretty fun. There is a fun last boss fight, but honestly, there's just too much to it. It feels like they weren't too sure on how to end it. I mean, if you have to resource to punching a boulder, I guess you just ran out of ideas. Hey, can't say it's not memorable. Another glaring omission from the franchise is the lack of puzzles, except for maybe one with the lasers. Other than that, there are no puzzles at all in the game. And a bigger offense to me now looking back, honestly because back then it didn't bother me, is that there's no backtracking. No levels are repeated. It's all straightforward. Nothing is intertwined and tangled with itself. There's no items to pick up that you might need for later, or examining an item for a secret button that unlocks a thing giving you a clue or a key. There are no keys in the game. They're key cards, but there are no keys to unlock doors that you've been looking at throughout the whole game, wondering what's behind it. Nothing like that at all. The music doesn't really feel like Resident Evil music either. It's good music, it still evokes an emotion, but it still doesn't have what makes Resident Evil music distinct. And even this feels more action than horror. To be fair to Capcom though, I couldn't find anywhere where it's calling Resident Evil 5 a horror game, so at least they didn't falsely advertise. Hopefully these differences that I'm pointing off are not coming off as complaints. They really are just things I didn't notice or paid attention to back in 2009 because I only had one game to compare it to. I still really enjoyed this game. I would easily put it on the best co-op list any day. The different locations from swamps to villages to temples always offer something different chapter to chapter. The graphics hold up pretty well, and the new villains introduced might have not been as iconic as some other ones in the series, but these aren't placed in the back of the pack either. Sheva is a cool character, and I kinda low-key missed her a bit. I especially missed Chris's buff-ass arms too.
Damn, boy, he's thick!
It's a great game that it just becomes even greater with the couch co-op. On February 10th, 2010, Capcom released the Lost Nightmare DLC, and you basically play the flashbacks Chris was having in the main campaign. You play as Chris or Jill in the Spencer Mansion. There aren't many enemies, but this does feature the more classic Resident Evil tone gameplay loop of finding the thing, taking the thing to unlock the thing to open the thing. They went so far back to the roots that if you try to leave the mansion 3 times, you'll be able to play the game using fixed camera angle style. I personally hate the tank controls, but I still think this shout out is pretty cool. Then on March 4th, 2010, another DLC dropped in Desperate Escape, where you play as Jill or Josh, and it takes place after she snaps out of it, and now you must escape. Desperately. Resident Evil 5 took out a lot of things that made Resident Evil what it was known for. It has an okay story with really cool characters, but the story around it kind of lacks the same punch some of the other games have. All this looking back makes sense since Resident Evil 5 is the first main entry in the series to be produced without series creator Shinji Mikami. Before the game was released, he claimed that he wasn't going to play the game, predicting that he wouldn't like it anyway since he wasn't the one that made it. He did eventually play it, feeling indifferent about it. The game originally was supposed to be a single player experience much like 4. Chris was set to be alone in Africa fighting a horde and an Ouroboros creature as Excella and Irving watched. There was also supposed to be a night stage with lickers in a village that was ultimately removed. Sheva was supposed to be from the local militia. She would have been popping in and out of the story, and at one point she was actually supposed to be kidnapped. Then she was fully an NPC partner shortly before she became a fully playable character. Jill and Barry Burton were to appear as NPCs in a boss fight as well. Burton was also planned to be popping in and out, helping either Chris or Jill. They were also set to remove Las Plagas established from Resident Evil 4 and bring back the T-Virus and classic zombies. Just much faster zombies. And the Umbrella Corporation was also set to make a complete return. So, somewhere along the way, these darker plans were ditched for a more action-heavy co-op shooter. A shift tone that back then I appreciate, but now that I am more versed in the Resident Evil lore and tone of the games, I can see why fans did not like this sidestep. So looking back, is it better than 4? Hell no! Resident Evil 4 is one of the greatest games of all time. Does it hold up today? Yes, it does. It still offers a ton of fun and exhilarating fights, and most importantly, couch co-op. A lot of games are missing couch co-op, opting in for more an online experience, but there's really nothing better than cussing out your homie next to you because he didn't save you from the zombie. Now, the biggest question, is it time for a remake? Well, originally, I didn't think so, but after I played through today, it could use some sprucing up for sure. The controls do feel dated, but there's nothing from keeping it from being playable and enjoyed today. Plus, you eventually get used to the controls, and you're smart, you can get it. But the story also needs some modernizing. It's still weird to me that there's no nighttime levels in the Resident Evil game, and I would love to see what Capcom would do with it now. Their remakes haven't really been wildly different from the originals. They added twists and turns for returning fans. I mean, Resident Evil 2 Remake is what remakes are supposed to be. Then they got greedy with 3, removing parts from it and not replacing it with anything. Then they created perfection with Resident Evil 4's remake. So 5 is next, right? Unless they want to go back to 0, 1, or what a lot of fans want, Code Veronica, which is actually the only mainline game I have not played, and I will for the channel, so make sure you subscribe for when I do. I would personally be more excited for 5. Would they completely change it? Would they remove co-op? Would they go back to a more survival horror take on it? There are just way more unanswered questions with 5. And that's what intrigues me more. I'm curious to see what they would do with it. Plus, the real reason why I want 5 is so that Capcom completely remake 6 because there are even more questions there. But I have a question for you. What do you want the next Resident Evil remake to be? And of course, any and all Resident Evil 5 thoughts, feel free to yell at me down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to always and forever, you do.